really would like to start working. That's my main.
What's your name, beloved?
Beloved?
No, me too.
Yo, I have a different take on the whole situation. A lot of us have not been as loved as we should have been. This is very true. A lot of us are products of dysfunctional homes, of mental disturbances, drug addiction, alcoholism. And that's dishonest. However, there is, like my cohort Robert said here, a lot of intelligence here. But through the instabilities, there is a need. I think it goes beyond socks. I think it goes beyond any physical or whatever need that anybody human can come up with, because we can all come up with a lot of them, can't we? It is a spiritual need. We need people to actually deal with us like human beings, because if we were dealt with like human beings in the first place, a lot of us wouldn't be in this area.
Many of the big investors who sold stocks today put their money into commodities instead. And that means gold and oil futures way up. Worries about the bailout and the weak U.S. dollar sending oil prices spiking $25 a barrel at one point. That's the biggest one-day jump ever recorded.
Rick Davis, the campaign manager, worked for a company called Homeowners Alliance that earned him some $2 million in the past few years, representing Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and trying to protect them from regulation.
Yeah, and I would say, quite frankly, we have no complaint about the way USDA is handled. They're going through an orderly process. They're making sure that as they deal with these new things, they do them properly. And now, if we're waiting until September and we don't have our authorization, we may say something different. Huh?
Call me. We're in a dereg business. Call me. We're in a dereg business.
Meanwhile, J.P. Morgan Chase has agreed to buy Washington Mutual's bank assets for $1.9 billion. WAMU's collapse yesterday was the biggest bank failure ever. Steve.
Right. Danger may be lurking at your local hospital, and it's not just the germs. Hospitals, research centers, and colleges are running out of places to dispose of dangerous medical waste. So some have been throwing it in their closets and basements and storage sheds. There are now fears that radioactive materials could get lost or even stolen by terrorists and turned into some sort of a dirty bomb.
All right, guys, the prosecution plans.
This is a quote that came from a book called America's Forgotten Pandemic, and it was published in 1989, and it's about the influence of the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic or pandemic. And what the quote is: the influenza pandemic of 1918-1919 killed more humans than any other disease in a period of similar duration in the history of the world. It's a pretty powerful statement. Okay.
Does anybody know what Patriot means? Well, what it means is providing advanced technologies to receive and intercept operational terrorism. It has nothing to do with patriotism. This Patriot Act, by the way, I had my special op in Delta because I taught the course February 12th, 2002 to the special op in Delta. We're auditioning we're auditing my course for the American Academy of Environmental Medicine. I was a primary professor teaching the course in bioterrorism in St. Louis in February 12, 2002, and I reviewed all of the history of bioterrorism and the operational dangers of both military operations, detecting, public health, and response. And after, for the next 3 or 4 days, I exchanged stories with all these guys, and their eyes lit up, even fellows that had been in lots of countries doing lots of bad things, killing people and breaking things. But I freaked them out, but what I knew, and they taught me a lot of stuff. And they're my best buddies. because they love hearing somebody like me that's out of the box and not afraid. I'm not afraid to die tonight, because if we don't fight this, we're all dead. And we're not just talking about death of our civilization, we're talking about death of our planet. To turn this thing around, just like the Titanic heading toward the iceberg. And if we don't stop this, and there's so many events that are converging, it's over. It's not only over for humanity, it's over for our planet. Because we're involved in something much bigger than the New World Order. And that's why when you hear various patriots that talk about one issue or another and they lock onto it alone, I'm going to show you the forest and the trees, so you'll see things tonight that even if you focus on a few issues, you're going to hear things that are going to be very shocking to you tonight. So the large sections of the Patriot Act I actually received from my Special Op Delta buddies that I taught and worked with back in Colorado. And I received them 2 years before 9/11. That's interesting, isn't it? Parts of the Patriot Act have been written, and I was told by my friends, were around, sitting around documents in the Pentagon and elsewhere for up to 12 to 15 years before 9/11. So they've been in the works for decades. And again, just repeating that, if you see that statement there will be a Pearl Harbor event. And that's serious when we're talking about a Pearl Harbor event. Now, the next big thing you need to be really aware of is the avian flu. And I'm going to tell you a story about this. And you might hear disinformation saying it's not going to be a problem. Don't believe it. This is the Brainiac virus. This virus is the most intelligent, deadly weapon that has ever been released. There is nothing like it in history. And the reason why, and I'll tell you why it is, and this is a very interesting story. I've had Dr. Henry L. Nyman on my program from Recombinomics for the past 2 years until about 4 months ago. Henry was on about every 2 weeks. He's also on the Jeff Rense Show. And I like to do a lot of my own producing. So I spend dozens and hundreds of hours. Sometimes I'm working 20, 22 hours a day trying to collect material and analyze it. Because I know when I look around to see if they're my colleagues, my doctors, I call my quivering white-coated colleagues who are shivering jellyfish, if they will back me up or if they'll try to corroborate, or scientists. Well, Dr. Nyman is a genius. There's no doubt. He has more patents on gene analysis, on viral sequencing and recombination, and his theories are correct. Recombination is how viruses change. They don't change by mutation, contrary to Dr. Fauci, the monster Fauci, who was behind the HIV spread and research, and Dr. Gerberding, who is the head of the Center for Disease Control, who's also involved intimately with the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease and the World Health Organization on the resurrection and the promulgation of this plague. And the money trail goes right back to the Rothschilds and the Jesuits. Okay? Now, I received the documents when I went to speak against fetal tissue transplantation and cyborg research at Human Life International, a private audience with the International Board, March 16, 1997. And when I spoke to the International Board of their top doctors and scientists at HLI in Zurich, they gave me almost 8 inches of documentation, not only about the avian flu, but about the AIDS virus and about vaccines to create sterile populations in sub-Saharan Africa to get rid of 185 excess sub-Saharan Africans. The AIDS virus was created directly under the control of the World Health Organization and the globalists, and I received those documents. And I personally was recruited in 1974 to take a year off of medical school and do my PhD in virology with the CIA in Uganda to actually work on retroviruses and recombination to actually create the AIDS virus. So I turned it down. But I know firsthand, not secondhand, about this, but I have further corroboration from my documents I got March 16, 1997. Well, the most disturbing is the avian flu. The avian flu was created with a bioengine using gene fragments of deceased miners in Alaska. They took these fragments and using a bioengine actually recreated the virus from nothing. They succeeded in doing this at the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. We know the names of the scientists involved, but the real story comes when you actually go letter by letter. And I'm a details person, if you can probably understand that. But I'm also a spiritual person. But I'm a real details person. I want to know every dot and comma and which way the comma is twisted. And so I started analyzing the DNA sequences over the last few years and spending many, many hours on the phone off air talking to Dr. Nyman, pulling every article in the world up on avian flu. And what I discovered was very, very disturbing. The lethal genes, if you look at this, the same gene polymorphisms that killed my grandmother's brother and sister in the 1918-1919 pandemic. Her sister died, and then a week later, because the brother had held his sister at graveside before the coffin was closed, he died. So I have a personal vendetta with this, because this virus, by the way, you should know the 1918 flu was created through viral pass-through technologies that were being developed